I want to start this channel by talking about how to have ecumenical conversations. I'm relatively new to the world of ecumenical conversations, only having started a few years ago in earnest, but ever since then, it's a hobby I've taken to with some enthusiasm. I tend to spend a lot of my time already studying things like the Reformation and historical theology, so it just sort of made sense for me. Over time, I became more and more interested in sectarian divides between Roman Catholicism, the various sects of Protestantism, and Eastern Orthodoxy. Over the years, I've discovered a few tips and wanted to compile a bit of a starter guide for anyone who happens across this channel and might be interested in starting in this world yourself. So we'll jump right into it with number 1, which is get thick skin, or at the very least, learn to hide when you're offended. Proverbs 19:11 says, "Good sense makes one slow to anger, and it is one's glory to overlook an offense." Christian history is full of stories of Christians killing each other, beheading, shooting, drowning, you name it. We shouldn't really expect our modern times to be any different. Having thick skin means being able to roll with the punches and understanding that at the end of the day, when we're really being honest with each other, a lot of the times we're going to think the other person is probably on the road to hell, depending, of course, what type of sect you're a part of. The best thing I can say is learn to have conversations with people who don't think like you and explicitly call out that you're going to be saying things that are offensive to the other person. I actually have numerous relationships with people who are Roman Catholic or Eastern Orthodox where we've set that ground rule that we feel comfortable enough to say the thing that is offensive about the other person, and we won't take it personally. These are our beliefs. Some of the best conversations I've had have been in the context of freely being able to offend the other person. Overlooking an offense, though, is a wonderful thing because it allows you to freely exchange ideas and will bring everyone closer to the truth. If something offends you, ask yourself why it does. Oftentimes, it's because you yourself are probably not as comfortable in your own grasp of the truth as you ought to be, which is something that is related to another topic we will bring up a bit later. Also, if I'm looking at my notes, this is just the first video on the channel. I'm still working things out, so bear with me as we continue. Exercise discernment is another one. This is Proverbs 26:4-5. Answer not a fool according to his folly, lest you be like him yourself. Answer a fool according to his folly, lest he be wise in his own eyes. So these are two proverbs that are put back to back, and that's important to understand. This obviously isn't a contradiction. This is a statement by the teacher telling us that there are times where both are going to have to be necessary. One of these will not suffice for all situations. When it comes to ecumenical discourse, especially those online, which will probably be the majority if you're just starting out, good 70% of the people engaged in ecumenical discourse online are probably bad faith actors. It's not shocking to me anymore when I see a radical traditional Roman Catholic insulting Protestantism at large, reducing someone who might be Anglican or Lutheran to the worst impetuses of the evangelical culture. It's just very common. It's also very similar with Eastern Orthodoxy, and Protestants have their own fair share. Independent fundamental Baptists, which there are many thinkers who would want to deny them the label of being truly Protestant, but here we are. They're horrible too. Ask, again, any Roman Catholic or Eastern Orthodox, they've probably been told they're going to hell by a bad faith actor from the Protestant side of things. So this is an area where we kind of want everyone to have thick skin, but at the same time, be aware that there's a lot of people who are seeking to just tell you you're going to hell. Learn not to engage with them. You need to understand that the 30% of the time where someone is being a good faith actor and is saying something that you personally find offensive, it's good to answer them according to that. If you think they're being foolish and you think they're incorrect, learn to argue how. There are times where you have to answer a fool according to his folly. Sometimes that actually means engaging in the rabble as well. There are times where onlookers might become discouraged and you have to kind of shout the other person down. Those are very, very rare, though. It's best not to insult. It's best not to engage in mudflinging. So again, if this is difficult for you to tell the difference between when you should engage a fool caught in his folly and when you should avoid a fool caught in his folly, it's important. You don't want to become like the fool yourself, but you also don't want the fools to feel like they're wise. So learn when to let another person have the last word, learn when to fight to the last word yourself, and learn when to not engage at all. Solid 70% of the time, like I said, you're probably not going to want to engage at all. Third tip, learn to appreciate the good things in other sects and point them out often. The proverb that goes with this one is Proverbs 12:23, and it might seem a little unrelated, but give me a little time. A prudent man conceals knowledge, but the heart of fools proclaims folly. Now, you might know something about Roman Catholicism, Eastern Orthodoxy, or Protestantism that you don't necessarily have to share, right? Every tradition has embarrassing moments. Every tradition has its weak points in theology. If you're starting every conversation trying to air your grievances or how you personally have been harmed or what you think is the best refutation, you're probably not going to get very far. Like this proverb says, a prudent man conceals knowledge. If you know something, you don't always have to share it. You don't always have to let it be known that you're educated, what you know, or past experiences that might put someone on the back foot. You may very well even have good grievances against a certain church. Those grievances are probably personal, and it's not your place to share them against someone who's just trying to have a decent conversation across sectarian lines. The heart of fools proclaims folly. In your heart, it's foolishness if you simply vomit out everything you know, you overshare, and you just let everything that you know about a certain sect come out. On the Protestant side of things, this might look like randomly accusing all of Roman Catholicism of being some type of assistant to covering up sexual abuse. For Eastern Orthodoxy, it might be claiming that some of their worst actors online represent how all of Eastern Orthodoxy is. You need to understand there are times to ebb and flow, give and take, and the best thing I can say is compliment the parts about other traditions that you like the most. It's a really good way to make friends and show that you're a good faith actor that truly does want to learn, grow, and have these good conversations. So these 3 tips, I hope, are somewhat helpful. And if you clicked on this video because you wanted a bit more of a quick start guide on how to get involved in having conversations with Christians of different denominations and different sects, I'll give you a few of my pointers here as well. The first one is, if you're new to ecumenical discourse, you might not actually be that well versed in your own tradition yourself. This is the part where I say if you have any type of ecclesial anxiety, if you're worried that Roman Catholicism is correct, if you're worried that Protestantism is correct, or if you're worried that Eastern Orthodoxy is correct, do not get engaged in this. This is not the hobby for you right now. Get your own house in order. The last thing you want to do is get engaged in this thinking it's going to confirm your prejudices or make you stronger in your own position, and you wind up being the trophy of some amateur online apologist. Make sure you know what you believe. If you're an evangelical Protestant who's clicked onto this video, that means actually learning church history. Or if you're a cradle Catholic or you're new to Christianity at all, it never hurts to read church history from an actual scholar. I have some recommendations for that. The Story of Christianity by Justo Gonzales, volumes 1 and 2 are fantastic. Zondervan also has a more accessible 2-volume set titled Church History by Everett Ferguson and Woodbridge James. Those are fantastic resources. Probably from a Protestant perspective, I am Protestant, so that's going to be my bend. But getting just some church history in you and reading what's accessible to you and getting used to it is going to be the best thing. So once you have some church history in your system, once you've looked at the broader picture of things, learn what you're supposed to believe now. Again, if you're unsettled, if you think you're going to change to a different sect or a different denomination, make that change, get settled there, and make sure you know what you believe. So if you're an evangelical Christian or part of a non-denominational church, that probably means having a meeting with your pastor and asking them to go through your statement of faith, your doctrinal positions, and learning how those relate to church history. If you're Lutheran, read the Book of Concord. If you're Anglican, learn what your history and what your doctrines are. Roman Catholicism, Eastern Orthodoxy, it's the exact same. Learn what your creeds are, learn what you're supposed to be believing first, and probably study that for a fair amount of time. The thing you should do after that is start studying other sects. Start learning what you want to know about these other sects. And so that's useful if you haven't started there yet. Keep that in mind as you go through church history, as you go through learning what you should believe, learning what your own doctrines are. If there's something there that jumps out to you and you say, oh, I'm really fascinated by, let's say, the Baptist view of the Eucharist, right? The memorial view. Maybe you want to know what that looks like in Eastern Orthodoxy, in Roman Catholicism. Start there. For me personally, the thing that I got most interested in when I was starting out learning about Roman Catholicism were the differences in how we view the Blessed Virgin. There's a distinction between how Protestants view Mariology. Protestants don't believe the Marian dogmas by and large. That's important. That's a major distinction. Learning, reading primary sources. That's a big one. And that's kind of where I want to leave this whole conversation. Okay, maybe you are someone who's really seasoned when it comes to the ecumenical discourse. Maybe you've actually already read, maybe you've converted to a different sect. The number one thing I have to tell you, read primary sources. Don't read popularizers. Okay, as fantastic as a lot of popularizers can be, as fantastic as a lot of apologists can be, you shouldn't just read what they have to say about primary sources or even collections of primary sources that are quote mining. Okay, if you want to know what another group believes, read their primary sources. Read the Roman Catholic Catechism. Read the Book of Concord. Read the Augsburg Confession. Read what actually went down in these historical moments. You'd be surprised how many moments in history have been completely cataloged. You can read the entirety of the Leipzig Disputation. Someone took notes of that. There's a lot of these primary sources online. Learn to read them. If that means having to dive into some esoteric translations or trying to find something that is only available in a Greek text that you have to use AI to do a rough and ready translation for you, do it. Just read primary sources. Don't just read what other people tell you to read. Read these primary sources, get a feeling for it yourself, and if it's confusing to you, ask someone from that sect to explain it to you, okay? If you're a Protestant and you want to understand what Roman Catholics believe about us and you've read Lumen Gentium and you want to know more, ask a Roman Catholic to explain it to you. Ask a Roman Catholic priest to explain it to you. You can do those things. That's allowed. All of this is to say, these things combined, if you're a Christian who wants to engage more with other sects, the most important thing for you to do is understand that this is not something you should engage in just because you want to have fun. This is something you should engage in because you want to get closer to the truth. And you want to see where the truth is in these other sects. We have to make sure that we're open to wherever God is leading us. And the most important thing is to engage this with wisdom. And I hope I'm given some of that in this video. So, like I said, this is my first video I'm really making. I'm still new to all of this, so if it's a bit rough, hopefully it'll get better over time. So, thank you for watching.